Hey, thanks for tuning in, everybody. This is JT, and if you are hearing this, you have once again tuned in the Consequence of Habit podcast. Hey, guys, like always, this podcast is brought to you by our one and only sponsor, and that is Athletic Brewing Company. I'm sipping on one of the all-out dark stouts as we speak. Do yourself a favor. It's dry January, everybody. Get yourself dry. Dry yourself up a little bit, you know what I mean? Rid yourself of some of that poison, but don't compromise when you're doing it. Drink some amazing beer. And I go dry January through December, and then I start all over again. But that doesn't need to be you. Maybe you're just trying to take a little bit of a break, and I completely get it. Do yourself a favor. Log on to athleticbrewing.com. Use the promo code capital COH 20 and get 20% off your first order. Hey, this week we are lucky enough to have on Elaine and Heath Brewer from Humble Warrior Wellness. These guys started a nonprofit where they're helping veterans or helping first responders kind of dealing with their own mental health, dealing with this crazy world that we're living in, and helping them digest some of the unfortunate things that they're seeing on a daily basis. Heath's background is as a EOD tech. That's an explosive ordnance disposal technician. And most of his time is spent assigned to a special operations team, specifically the SEALs. 12 deployments. Guy's seen all kinds of stuff, and it was through his process of realizing that he was not dealing with things the way he should be. As he was getting ready to transition out of the military, he went through a program where they talked about mental health. They talked about ways to mitigate some of the things that he's dealing with, things like yoga, meditation, mindfulness, and it was through that, after he saw the benefits of this, that he and his wife started Humble Warrior Wellness, and they're providing just an amazing service for the veterans and first responders that serve us. So with that said, please welcome to the podcast, Elaine and Heath Brewer. All right, thanks everybody for joining. This is JT here at the Consequence of Habit podcast. Today, I am honored to have on the members of Humble Warrior Wellness. I have Elaine and Heath Brewer. Guys, I appreciate you coming on.
Hey, thanks so much for having us. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Hey, just before we get into exactly what Humble Warrior Wellness is, just because I think it's important to your guys' story, explain what your background is leading up to where you guys are now.
Okay. Who wants to go first?
I can go first.
Okay.
So my name is Heath Brewer. I joined the Navy back in 2000. I just retired a couple months ago.
Oh, congrats.
I did over 12 deployments to Iraq, Afghanistan, Somalia, Yemen, mostly in the special operations role. EOD technician. Explosive ordnance disposal. So we dealt with explosives, bombs, and stuff like that. So first deployment to Iraq, was dealing with a lot of the roadside IED issues and all the really defensive nature. And then after that, I was attached to different SEAL teams over the next 15 years, and was taking more of an offensive role. So I just retired, and and here we are in Colorado.
Cool.
Yeah. And so we're both from St. Louis, Missouri. So I met Heath kind of in high school. We were acquaintances and kind of ran a little bit with the same crowd. And he came back from his first deployment in Iraq, and I was newly single, and the rest is kind of history. I kind of was following him around to Virginia Beach, bartending to buy a plane ticket out there. And we got married after we moved to Monterey. He went to DLI, which is the Defense Language Institute. And so we got married and kind of settled in Virginia Beach. And he went to a couple SEAL teams. I was working at a vet, and a lot kind of transpired during that period of time to get to where we got to now. A lot of kind of trauma and turmoil and, kind of what we're going to get into. And so we'll kind of let that play out, how we got to where we are here in Colorado.
A lot of learning along the way.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So let's jump into it. Let's talk about what is Humble Warrior Wellness and how did even the idea of that begin?
So after Heath retired, or a lot of times when they're transitioning to retire, they're kind of pushed to go to this place called NICoE, which is the National Intrepid Center of Excellence, which is a specialized branch at Walter Reed for kind of TBI and post-traumatic stress and kind of, documenting all the bumps and bruises and whatnot they've gotten along their career. And he went to that and had a really profound experience. The last week, they kind of bring in the spouses, caregivers, partners, and kind of let them in on all the healing and, what they've been doing with all the doctors there. And that's when I kind of had a really profound experience. I had a physical health background doing, kettlebells, group fitness, spin. And that's when I was really introduced to meditation and yoga. And we kind of walked out of that place being like, holy shit, this is amazing. Why are only special forces guys given kind of this opportunity? So we kind of racked our brains and wanted to create a kind of holistic center really just for military. And then we were like, man, these first responders nowadays are really going through it, so why don't we bring them in? And then with COVID, we were kind of like emergency medical workers. What can we do, to bring them in? And so, we got our 501c3 in July, and now we're working on getting a space and getting the float pods. So we want to bring in meditation, yoga, float pods, acupuncture, alpha stim, eucalyptus steam and saunas, just a really place for rest and relaxation, mindfulness. Yeah. So.
Hey, why do you think it is that it's tailored towards a special operations group? Is it just they're always seem to be on the cutting edge of whether it's technology, gear-wise, health, on how you're being treated? Why do you think that is?
I think because funding, and I think the mindset of special operations, always trying to better human performance. And, you can be the best athlete physically in the world, or the smartest or, whatever special operator in the world. But if your mental state's not there, then it doesn't matter. Yeah. So I think they're very open-minded to, to be on the cutting edge of new technologies and stuff. So, and the operation tempo, op tempo is very, very high. Yeah. It's very go, very fast-paced environment. So I think that's another thing that kind of leads to some of the issues, I think a little bit quicker maybe.
Yeah, there's more significance in the TBIs and the post-traumatic.
Yeah, there's a lot of the TBI stuff going there because of how much you're jumping out of airplanes, how many, breaching charges you have, that you do because you're constantly practicing, and then you're deploying, and you come back and you're practicing it all. So it's a lot of that going on. I think that was probably reason why I think probably they got admitted first, and then everything just else kind of followed, I think, after that.
Yeah, I talked to a lot of other people that are dealing with the VA specifically, right? And this avenue of approach isn't something that's widespread at this point. They're hoping to change that. And I don't care which one of you guys go first on this. You mentioned you had a profound experience, and that's at the National Intrepid Intensive Outpatient Center, correct? Is it something that you're free to talk about, that you're willing to talk about, and if so, just sure. Explain what that looked like.
Okay, yeah, sure. So I was going there, and because I asked multiple colleagues that I'd worked with who had returned from there, and I asked how was it? They're like, oh, it was great. It was really great. They really, the doctors are awesome there. You can get everything documented that you've been putting off because a lot of guys won't get things documented, even bumps and bruises because, you want to stay operational. So a lot of aches and pains, stuff that I've just been dealing with. I was like, okay, I'll go there, get it all documented. So, on the as I get closer to retirement, I have to go start submitting all my VA paperwork and everything, then I won't have any issues. So I was going there specifically for physical injuries and everything else. I was completely unaware that I had anything, mentally going on.
And this is where I pop in and say, I knew he had something mentally going on.
Yeah, they recognize it a lot. The spouses and family members recognize it a lot. I think a lot quicker than actual members do. I think that's probably in most mental health issues. But so I went there and I checked in there and started. They have a whole team of doctors. It's a great place. It's a very special place. So after about, let me just back up a little bit. Going there, I was very, like I said, physically ailment oriented because I'd heard my colleagues, none of my colleagues had said anything about the mental health aspects of this place. I'm not sure why, it might still be like the whole stigma behind it.
Oh, you know why.
About the whole stigma and everything else behind it. But, so I went there and, going there, I was very much had the question, why are veterans' suicide rates always high? Why, all this PTSD stuff, what are they talking about? Like I've seen, multiple dead bodies, body parts blown all over the place, been some pretty dicey scenarios. And like, I'm completely fine.
Yeah.
Like what's wrong with all these other people? So going there, and then after, you check in there and you had the standard psychological questionnaire. Are you happy? Are you sad? Are you depressed? And I'm going through it. Are you sad? No, I don't have a reason to be sad. Are you depressed? No. Why would I be depressed? So you go through the standard questionnaire. I was very unaware that I wasn't feeling anything. So of course I was, I was like, no, I'm not feeling any of that. I wasn't really feeling anything. I was unaware of that at the time. So after about 3 weeks, after going through all this yoga and meditations and breath work and all this stuff that they have there.
And the education.
And the education part. The education part.
The autonomic nervous system, parasympathetic. I think the education is huge. Sorry.
The education part was huge for me, just the way my brain works, very analytical. And if I don't know there's a problem, then I don't know. Then once I know there's a problem, okay, how do we fix it? The education part's a big part of that. So the education piece, and then all the why yoga and meditation and all that works. After about 3 weeks, I was going to my next appointment, and I had this like feeling.
Reaction.
No, it was more like a feeling. I started thinking back about that questionnaire, and I was like, wow. I was like, I think I am sad about something. I don't know what. But like all of a sudden, like I started having this like a weird emotion, like I'm kind of sad about something or depressed. I'm not really sure, but like something's off. Right. Like I'm not really sure what it is or why. And then I started getting a little defensive, like what's going on here,
Yeah.
So, and then the fourth week, they brought Elaine down, and they caught her up on everything. And during one of our sessions, with the social worker, I used to check out basically whenever I get uncomfortable. I completely just check out, and unknowingly, it's part of it's just a response. So, and I had done it for so long, I didn't even know it. So they didn't allow me to check out this one time when they asked me a question, and I started like getting very hot. My skin felt like on fire.
Yeah.
I started getting like really sweaty, and I started halfway crying, halfway laughing, not really sure. And then I was just like, what is going on right now?
Yeah.
And I was like, what is going on right now?
Because were you not used to seeing that type of emotion coming out of them then?
No, for the 10 years that we, were at this command he was at, I would always say to him, like, you don't even have emotions. I considered him that he just didn't have emotions. So I was like gobsmacked when this started happening. I didn't know what to say. It made me super uncomfortable because I was like, do I try and stop him and like pull him out of this, or do I allow him to like process what's going on? Like, I just didn't really know what to do. But kind of as the session went on, and as, we did more sessions, it kind of would start to happen again. And the therapist was like, you're literally having an emotion, and you've suppressed emotion so long that like your body is having this like visceral kind of reaction to it. That's what they were telling him. And I don't know, do you want to keep going?
Yeah. So it was a very awkward, super weird feeling. It happened like one other time as I continued on with my therapist here in Colorado. Like one of the first times I went back in, to see this guy. And then it kind of just, went away, as I started practicing more of these things. And, I hadn't had an emotion so long that my body didn't know what to do. It was just trying to reject it, basically. And I was having that physiological reaction. But then, after constantly doing these practices over the past few years, it's really, the sense of connection and emotions have come back and everything. So, I continue to work on it. Something, I like to explain to people when I'm, talking about this. It was like I went to the gym and only worked on the left side of my body, just did lots of my left foot, bench press with my left arm, for, 15, 20 years. So now I have to try to, rebalance everything back out. And that's what we continue to do. And it's great, had great success. I actually have, connections with my, family, real connections.
Right.
Before I thought I was seeing, happy spots or having connections with the family and stuff like that. I thought I was feeling something. No, I really wasn't. And you don't really realize that until afterwards. And whenever you do have those emotions or you do feel that sense of connection, it's like, oh, okay.
That's it.
That's what that feels like. I haven't felt that in, like I said, 15, 20 years.
Yeah. Did you find that emotion came to the surface a lot quicker because it'd been so suppressed, or was it a matter of it just, you had to work to get it to come out? And I only asked that because I had somewhat of a similar experience, obviously not with your background, but where I wasn't aware of emotion. And then I had an anxiety attack, right? I'd never had something like this in my life. And then I found after that like emotion came like almost too quick, because I'd been suppressing it for so long. It's like I compare it to like a pressure cooker, and now it just wants to come out. So I don't know if you felt the same thing.
Yes, because it like I said, I only had basically 2 kind of episodes, and that second one was way less than that first one. Mm-hmm. So, and then after that, it's just more of trying to, maintain those balancing practices that'll, continue to allow the emotions to actually be there.
Yeah.
But way less. Cause I remember being in Mexico, and our friend proposed to one of our other friends, a longtime friend. So they finally are getting married on the beach there. And I started like kind of getting a little teary eyed and stuff, and which is like not like me, in the past. And I was like, okay, I'm okay. I feel this now, so it's been a process, and it's been a, trying to keep aware of myself. So, and staying self-aware and actually just hold myself accountable for doing the practices that, maintain the balance.
Yeah, it's funny because that emotional awareness, I don't care what we're talking about, right? So whether it's dealing with PTSD, whether it's dealing with addiction, I mean, any of these things, it's just, it's being aware of what's going on, and then seeing your actions and understanding that there's a reason behind the things that you're doing. So, if you're just trying to, you're addicted to work, or you're addicted to drugs, or it's these constant distractions, and being emotionally aware enough to be able to go, something's not right. Like, this behavior is not normal. So, Elaine, how about yourself? What did you take away from that as a profound experience?
So, I had a lot of issues while he was at Dev Group, and the constant deployment cycle. And, there were a lot of accidents and loss of life, loss of friends. And I didn't deal with that very well. I was having panic attacks. I was self-medicating. I was, drinking to numb the pain. Yep. And confusion and loneliness and resentment and all that. And so I guess like really going tonight and, just having a husband who wasn't really emotionally, connected, kind of felt like a whole another, like I'm a very emotional person. And so I felt kind of like the weight of the world. And then my husband would come home and would be completely shut off. And then I would kind of be like, all right, well, I'm shutting off too. And the only way I knew how to do that was like with alcohol. Mm-hmm. And so I guess going to NICoE and, I knew I had my issues going in and they're not there to help me. They're there to give me the education about, kind of how to help him and how to, go forward with this and kind of have a little more compassion and empathy. He's like the way he is because of what he sustained over his military career. He's not just being an asshole. Right, so right. I think the education was huge. I think him having that breakthrough, that's when I, like I said, got introduced to yoga and meditation, which has been extremely helpful for the both of us. And I went home and I read, I think 5 books about how to change your brain or, neuroplasticity creating new neural pathways, new habits, et cetera. And I think that just having that knowledge that, you can reprogram, you can create new habits. Like you're not broken, you can go forward and kind of create a new normal for yourself. Right. You don't have to stay complacent and stuck in whatever toxic habits have worked for you in the past.
Yeah. So. Or not worked. Right. Like those
or not worked. Yeah. Well, they say like a lot of these habits you bring on because they almost like kept you alive or they kept you in a state where you could carry on. I don't know that I would be able to have dealt with all of, the shit that was going through my head and all the emotions without kind of checking out along the way. So,
I've heard, and I've said this on the podcast before, but, and this is you talking about like, habits that are formed as a child, right? So if you're in a not great household and you form these habits and they're like to preserve yourself, right? Self-preservation. And then they don't serve you later on in life. And I hear people like they'll write a letter to like their kid version of themselves, like thanking them for like, hey, helping me survive, but we need to make some changes. And I'm like, God, that gets me emotional. Just even hearing somebody like read a letter to like a kid version. I'm like, good God. So you guys get through this. Walk me through and stop me if I'm jumping too far ahead, but walk me through You're going to be retiring soon. Obviously, you've already retired, but at the time, your mindset, let's build something to help others start working through these things. If you could just explain that.
So I mentioned going into there, I was like, why are veterans suicide rates so high? Like like I said, I've seen all kinds of stuff and I'm fine.
Yeah.
Obviously coming out of there, I was like, wow, okay, I get it now. This is why there's a lot of people that have this going on and there's, they don't have access to that type of treatment that I just had, so, or the education piece, they don't even know this is going on or aren't even aware of like how I was. So then I think, after learning everything there and, after, understanding that, I look at it as, these things come up in the future for guys that, aren't aware that they're even going on. And then they don't know how to deal with it because they just know that something's not right. They don't feel anything. They don't have any connections with anyone. They've lost their identity if they've already retired because of, of their, they've lost that part of their life. And it's like, okay, I get it. That's why this is going on.
Yeah.
So, and then we started, thinking like, well, man, the police and first responders, and all this trauma and stuff they're a witness to. And then, and the EMTs and all the medical personnel in the emergency room, it's like, okay, well, their autonomic nervous system is doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have access to this type of information? Or is somebody telling them this?
Yeah.
What about the Army infantry grunt that was there with me in 2003? They were there for like 18 months. They kept on getting extended. Like, do they know about any of this stuff?
Yeah.
And so then we were talking about it, and it was really Elaine's idea, so I'll let her take over.
Well, I just think, sometimes when you're in the midst of the muck, or you're in the flames or whatever, you don't have the capacity to have emotional awareness or like this mindfulness that kind of brings up all of this stuff. You can read all the books in the world or, do all these things. But if you can't sit with yourself and ask yourself, like, why am I doing this? Like, what is my internal dialogue? Like really sit with kind of like, what's your subconscious? Like, what is creating these habits? It's really hard to move past that, or actually, reprogram and recreate new habits. And so I think a lot of these mindful practices that we want to implement at Humble Warrior kind of allow you to sit with yourself and, be able to create mindfulness and emotional awareness and kind of all the things that really set you on a good path, other than having that kind of like-minded environment with, all the other same people who are kind of been in that sense of hyper-vigilant work environments. And so I just think it's really going to be a center of healing and, just really, I don't know, like.
One of the great neat things about creating a place like this is, it's something that there's no other place like this. A lot of these therapies and practices, a lot of other foundations will pay for you to go do it, but it's in a private sector company, in a public place, or a lot of foundations and some benefits will pay for a veteran to go take yoga classes, mm-hmm. or go to what else, the gym or spa, or go get acupuncture or something like that. But this place is specifically for service oriented people, so having that like-minded community, I think will help with some of the things I talked about before about people losing their identity. Okay, well, they can come here after they're done, or while they're there. So we want to create this sense of community with these service members that they're in a yoga class. It might be. I was the same way. I was like, okay, yoga's for that's some hippie dippy bullshit.
Right.
What's all this breathing stuff talking about? Whatever. Yeah, obviously I'm a big fan of it now because I've seen the benefits of it, and so sitting in a police officer or a veteran that's been sent to, a gym or some other yoga class that's just there with general public isn't as powerful as a yoga class where they're like, okay, they're staying open-minded. They've had the courage to actually try this out now. Mm-hmm. They show up there and they're in it with, an EMT worker, a firefighter, other police officers, other veterans, and say, okay, it'll create a sense of community and it makes them a little bit more comfortable.
But also, if yoga's not your thing, that's not your jam, go across the hallway and go do, a eucalyptus steam and do a guided meditation in there, or just kind of sit with yourself. If you don't like that, go get, a massage. You don't like that, go
try the sensory deprivation.
Yeah. Go sit in a room and do alpha stim and read a book for, 40 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like one-stop shop, because somebody's going to like something, somebody's not. And it's like, oh, you didn't like that. Okay, go home, go figure out something else you like, go make an appointment, then drive there. It's kind of like, you can try something else, same day.
And hopefully with that like-minded environment and in that community there, that they can they get, comfortable talking about what's working for them within the walls of the facility. And then hopefully they're like, okay, they go, someone says, oh yeah, I didn't like the sensory deprivation pod, but I went and did a eucalyptus steam and listened to a guided meditation in there for 20 minutes. I went home and was awesome. That the family didn't get on my nerves.
Right.
I was there. I was like, didn't blow up at them. So we're trying to get them to, incorporate this into their daily and, weekly routines to where they can, at least be, have that sense of connection and don't lose themselves altogether and end up like how I was at the end. And now I'm playing catch up.
Right.
So if you could incorporate this into your routine throughout your career, one, I think you're going to be better in your career, and you probably have a lot more longevity. You're going to be way healthier. You're going to not lose, your sense of emotions and everything, with your family along the way. Like, happens a lot in the military. And then and first responders. So, having a place that they can do that. And like I said, hopefully they get comfortable talking about it amongst themselves within the walls. And then they can go back and get comfortable talking about it with their partners or within their shops. And then hopefully that's kind of our strategy to crush the stigma.
Yeah. I definitely think there's something behind being around your own. So even in a world of recovery, you go into a room and it's everyone else is dealing with the same thing, you lower your defenses right away. If you take somebody and you put them, this is a combat vet, and you send them to, a yoga class with a bunch of people who have no idea where they came from and the type of world that they've lived in, then inherently we build walls, right? And you can't truly be yourself, and you're never going to think that they understand or get you. So I think it's great. I think it's a great thing that having like-minded people with the same experiences, and it adds street cred, right? I think it adds street cred when you go and you talk to your fellow officers or your fellow vets, and you say, no, we were all the same. Like, we were all vets. We were all first responders. I think it's actually really fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you. We're excited about it.
So you guys, where are you in the process? I mean, everything's up and running. How many people have you seen? Like, where are you now with it?
No, we're looking for a space right now, and we're starting the grant writing process to look for a space to open up right now. But hopefully when COVID, the never-ending virus ends, I will be able to kind of start using my yoga background to maybe go down to a couple military installation, military bases, and start doing yoga. There's a big veteran center here that I'd like to start doing yoga at, and kind of start doing that preemptively before we get a space, is start kind of
while we're waiting for all that, the grant writing and the process and everything go through, and nothing moves as fast as you want it to.
No.
Yeah.
But and then we've also partnered with the like I said, the Veteran Center here, and there's another nonprofit here that we've also partnered with for the behavioral health for first responders. It stays confidential also, because that's another big thing. Especially for first responders, I think even more than in the military.
Yeah.
Really? Don't want to be taken off the job or sidelined or anything for asking for help or anything. So. Or if they, going to talk to a counselor or something like that. So we recognize that. And we also recognize that, if someone is like me and coming and starting these practices, that, some of these feelings or emotions might start coming up. They might not know why. And then, we wanted some places to, to refer them to that are close by that, is completely confidential.
Yeah. What's been the response within the communities that you've seen? And I ask this because I've had on vets, I've had on first responders, and this seems to be a concept and idea that is growing, right? Traditionally, PTSD was thought of as a military thing. That definition is changing. I mean, I've had firemen on here I've had two of them now these are go-getters. These are fit. Like, on the surface, everything seems perfect. Probably what you saw in the mirror, right? Like, everything seems fine on the surface, but deep down, same thing. They started like, why am I drinking so much? Why am I an asshole to my family or whatever? Let me get back to my actual question. What has been the reaction within the communities so far? Well,
it's been a great reaction. I mean, we have Fort Carson here. We have the Air Force Academy. We have Peterson. We have a lot of military in the area. There's been a lot of, I guess, first responder incidents when we first moved here. I think 3 years ago, I think there were 3 or 4 officers killed in the line of duty when we moved here. So there has been grieving just in the current state of what's going on with first responders, and how the world kind of looks at them and views them now has been really detrimental on their mental health. And so they want a place where they go and they can feel like they're not being judged, and they're in a like-minded environment, and they can work on these things without being like, oh, you have an issue. No, this is just a, mental exercise. This doesn't mean that there's necessarily anything wrong. Everybody should be doing practices like this just to stay mentally healthy, mentally aware, emotionally aware. It makes you a better person, a better operator, etc. So the feedback has been really great. I think people are really excited. They want it to open very quickly. Mm-hmm. But it is what it is. We have to, put one foot in front of the other and make sure that, it's gonna work.
Yeah.
So one of our strategies with this whole thing is, this place is a place where you can take your own health into your own hands. So you have control over it. Yeah. It's not a place where you go in. We're not going to have doctors everywhere. It's nothing like that. It's just you come in, you self-assess. Okay, how are you feeling today? What do you think is going to work? Okay, let's go try that. If you need some guidance or some counseling, we have experts that are available and ready to do that. They can teach you some breathing techniques. We have meditation coaches, and Elaine's is super knowledgeable in all this stuff. And if you want some extra help, you want to say, okay, I'm having issues sleeping. I can't get good sleep. I keep on waking. Okay, well, why don't you try this? Try this. Try this. So, it's really, we're trying to create a really non-threatening environment where they can just take matters into their own hand and see what works. And if it continues to work, then they just keep at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's, especially when someone starts doing that, they start taking ownership of it too, right? I mean, it's something that they're not being told what to do. And I think especially guys coming from the military, that's a good thing, because you've been told what to do and how to do it for so long. So, both of you guys made a good point where you're more operationally fit, right? So when you're in a better mental place, and this is something I'm trying to spread the word of, you talk about law enforcement and how they're being looked at right now in the communities. And, if I ever have an opportunity to talk to upper management, if you could get these people to be emotionally aware, those dividends pay off, not just in their own safety, but their interactions with the public. It's just an all around positive thing. I think turning that around, I think it's happening, but like you said, it's just a slow process getting these ideas.
Well, I mean, that's what we talk about. A lot of the first responders and military, they have so much pent up, just shit that they have suppressed for so long. And so we talk a lot about the window of tolerance, and they're going in, they're not going 0 to 100. They're going from 80 to 100.
Right.
So they're more reactive. They're more, they're driving into work pissed off. Somebody says something before they go out on patrol, or before they, it just makes you more reactive when you can do something to widen that window of tolerance, and to have more emotional awareness, because it's something that you created as a, routine into your daily life. Then, it makes you more empathetic. It makes you more compassionate. It makes you less reactive. Mm-hmm. So this is not just, combating TBIs or PTSD. This is just making you an overall better at your job, better at your relationships. So
and one of the things that, we were talking about, especially as, they were looking at bringing in a lot of empathy coaches and all these emotional awareness or emotional intelligence coaches and stuff into these and to teach these classes on cultural awareness to the police. And it's like, that's kind of the cart before the horse, in my opinion,
Right.
because they're teaching these guys that they're probably, I guarantee you, at least over half, or like me, don't even know that this stuff is going on. That their job is kind of produce this kind of side effect within their nervous system. And it's like, okay, well, if they're going out and they already feel threatened, one, in the environment they're living in, and they have all these other things. They have pain issues. They have either ringing in their ears. They have financial issues, marital issues, whatever. All these things add up. And like Elaine said, you're starting your day off at 80 already. Your window of tolerance is very small. So you're either going to, go low and freeze, which they don't have the option to, or they're going to go high and get angry and, act out. So within that window of tolerance, if we can make that larger by getting rid of some of all that other stuff that's going on, then, their bandwidth is a lot wider.
Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense.
And they can actually, that's when you can kind of have those classes on, cultural awareness, emotional empathy and all that stuff, because if you're going to an environment and you're already way up here outside of your window of tolerance and you feel threatened, it's physically impossible for you to feel any kind of emotions.
Yeah.
You're already on the guard. You're in fight or flight already. Your emotions aren't there.
Yeah.
Anger and numbness and disassociation is there. So, trying to give them practices and stuff to make that window larger to where they can stay in it longer, I think should be the focus.
Well, your fight or flight state is literally meant to just keep you alive. Like that's all you're thinking about. How do I, self-preserve? And so you're not thinking about, all this, pretty much the whole scenario, the whole environment that's around you. You're saying self-preservation is number one right now.
And unfortunately, we're only seeing via the media that final act, right? That you're not going to hear about everything else that's led up to these things. And I think it's important because I'll talk to people and they'll say, I can't believe so-and-so from this department did this. But if you really take a step back, and this goes for veterans, you hear about people getting out and they've gone off the rails, they've committed crimes, they've done all these things. But if you take a step back and you look at their life and you go, okay, these people have lived in this code red for so long that it would be crazy to think that they don't have something going on. You know what I mean? Like it's insane to think that there wouldn't be some issues. So it's very hard at that point when you see the footage of something to have empathy for somebody, but it's that totality, right? It's that totality of looking at everything and going, no wonder, man, no wonder. So, and especially now that society, not all of it, but there's swaths of the population that look down on these people, which is, it's really unfortunate. I'm really happy to hear that there's programs like what you guys are doing. Have you had the opportunity to present this towards any type of management within these first responders? Or I know you mentioned you've been working with the VA, but anything on that first responder side?
Yeah, we've talked to kind of the Colorado Springs police chief of mental health. So he kind of runs the mental health department. And, he seems pretty, like, from what he said is there's not a lot of funding for mental health within the police departments. It's kind of like an after the fact thing. After an incident happens, then we send you to kind of a psychiatrist or, a crisis therapist, whatever. But they really don't have a lot that implements, like, how do we build resilience? How do we work on this window of tolerance? How do we kind of do all these things that can maybe help an incident from happening rather than just, something happened, send them off,
Yeah, in my opinion,
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, in my opinion, that doesn't work, especially for somebody that has especially been engulfed in it a lot. Obviously there's certain trauma and certain events that require, traumatic events that require counseling that guys need to, identify and go to. But like for myself, we would always, after deployment, we had to go see the psychologist. One of those checking the blocks when you get back from deployment, you have to go do. And I went, and I'd always go, and they'd ask, "Well, did you see any dead people?" Blah blah blah. Yeah. Okay. Well, how do you feel about that? It's just it's a job. Like I just did what I was supposed to do.
Right.
And then it's like, okay, well, how do you feel? I don't feel fine. I don't feel anything. Like I feel fine. Obviously at the time I wasn't feeling anything.
Yeah. Right.
I didn't know that. So it's kind of like one of those things. It's like I was getting the check in the block, but it wasn't really doing anything for me, because I didn't realize I had anything going on.
So he kind of had this whole emotional numbness and shutdown while I was on the opposite end, and I was having, major panic attacks. I was sitting there kind of hypervigilant in my own way, constantly waiting for the ball to drop, because for so many years it was a constant cycle of like death, divorce, deployment. Like everybody around us was dealing with, one of them. And I just kind of got to a point where it was like, are we going to make it out of this shit alive or together or what? So it, that became very taxing on, my emotional state, our relationship. He was down here, I was up here. We weren't meeting in the middle at all. So, it's funny how people can go two different ways to deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's what they usually say, right? Like some people just turtle up and just kind of put a shell around them, and then other ones are just they'll get angry or do whatever they do because they want, they're trying to get that connection with the other person. So. Hey, going back to funding, when you mentioned the local police department say, hey, we don't have the funding for this. Somebody even saying that doesn't truly understand that the amount of money you won't have to pay in the long run for the lawsuits and all these other things that come along with it, that money is well spent up front, where you'll just have I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know, but that it's just, you'll have a healthier workforce. You'll have a better interaction with the community, a better relationship with the community. There's just so many positives that go along with it. And it's comments like that, maybe it's the reality of there, but until those things change, then it's an uphill battle for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. So as far as you guys, this thing is if they want to support you, they want to find out more information about the programs that you're doing, how do they go about doing that?
Our website is www.humblewarriorwellnesscenter.org. We have a PayPal kind of donation system set up on there. That'll tell you all of what we want to bring to the community, who we are, what services we want to implement into the center. We also have awesome Humble Warrior apparel on the site that you can buy. And we're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. I run all those accounts. I answer messages pretty quickly. So if anybody wants to reach out, I will respond as quickly as I can.
Awesome. Elaine, Heath, I really appreciate you coming on. I wish you all the luck. I'm stoked to see how this thing turns out and the good work you guys are going to be doing. So thanks a lot. And we'll check back in.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we'll check back in.
Thank you so much for having us.
All right, guys.
All right. Bye.
Bye. All right, that's it for me. Thank you to Elaine and Heath Brewer from Humble Warrior Wellness, man. You keep doing what you're doing. We're excited to see where that takes you and the amount of people that you're going to be able to help along the way. So thanks to you guys. Hey, if you enjoyed this content, if you enjoyed the show, please do me a favor and subscribe. Log on, subscribe. Send me some feedback. Rate me. Good, bad, indifferent, doesn't matter. And most importantly, tell a friend. Tell them what we're doing here. Tell them about the stories that are being told, right? You don't even have to mention me. Just mention the guests and the stories that they're sharing. That's it. I will see you all next week.